we,
And
the
I'm
process
sorry,
that,
excuse me, why do we need it for? Sorry.
why do we need it?
Yes.
Totally understand. So currently in regulations, there are certain areas that are alluded to, but it's not actually lined out as well as it should be. And so the current practice, it has been the practice for like 10 years, is to make sure that there's diversity and accuracy. And the most important word there is accuracy of the different background areas when it comes to, let's just say in social studies, that it's not just one point of view. I'm going to use Nevada as the example, that also talking about some of the Native American experiences, and that we're also talking about the Asian Pacific Islander experiences and everything. The practices for the last 2 textbook adoptions has been to make sure that those are accurately being depicted, and also that they are in fact included in our textbooks when it comes to instructional materials, when it comes to social studies, English, the humanities, which would be arts, and then also in health and science. And so this is simply putting what is the practice currently into state law. And actually what it's doing as well is it's also clarifying that age appropriate needs to be present as well. Because quite frankly, there are some things that should not be taught in 1st or 2nd grade, but then there are some, like we should be teaching the importance of the Native American experience in 2nd or 3rd grade. It should not wait until the high school level. And so that's kind of one thing that is there. So that's kind of what basically this bill is trying to do, is to make sure that instructional materials that are statewide adopted have this in there when they are considering it, when it comes to social studies, English language arts, as well as the arts, as well as
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, making sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I was not born and raised in Nevada. I was born and raised in Southern California. We learned a lot of things about different cultures. So it's hard for me to believe why you guys don't have it. You know, it just makes you think that you guys just didn't care for all these decades. I don't know.
Oh no, it's been the practice. It has been the practice, but it is not in the state law. So I think that's one thing that's really important is it has been the practice. And so there's some codes that are part of it or regulations, but it has not actually been defined clearly. And so this is simply trying to do that.
I understand we're not in a friendly political climate, and I might bring you some points that may sound a little bit of a taboo. My apologies, but again, we have to get it out because
Number one, never apologize for your views. Freedom of speech is incredibly important for
But
a number of
we have a lot of social media with a lot of people that just don't like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so you try to incorporate diversity. Okay, so what is diversity? I guess really the question is, why is Nevada among the most diverse states in the country? I mean, do you think that first of all that we would have been as diverse if it weren't for California's high cost of living, the casino sector, construction? Maybe these were the industries that allowed these demographic changes to continue. And why is it diverse? And of course, what is diversity? What does that exactly mean? And do you realize that there are concerns about diversity because nothing is perfect? I mean, we find that diversity can lead to conflict, not just in the U.S. but all over the world. The country that my parents come from, there is a level of diversity, and there is a lot of conflict.
So I think you've moved into a different area from away from the bill itself.
Okay, but will the bill teach that? I mean, there are issues with
Oh my
diversity.
goodness, that's not really the role of education, in my opinion,
Okay.
to go into that. Instead, it is, here's an example. How often do we think about the Declaration of Independence and the dependence of the Declaration of Independence upon not only, yes, the English version of the 2 houses, which is definitely what we also have here in Nevada, but also the great peaceful migration. Let me see if I've also got there. That's not the right word. But the Great Law of Peace. I mean, this was an item that was is believed to have been started by the Native Americans in the 1450 AD time. which included freedom of speech, freedom of religion, free houses. I mean, all of those things. And so it's that item is what I'm trying to bring in. I'm not trying to say why we have the diversity. I'm also nowhere near saying that one culture is more important than another.
Okay.
No, never would do that because there's no
Okay.
need. That doesn't help us as a community. And more importantly, it doesn't help our kids. Our
Okay.
fourth graders, I just spoke to some fourth graders actually right before this. It was awesome to be able to read them a children's book. But the class I was reading to was majority Latino, Hispanic.
Mhm.
It happened to have a book with some Spanish words in it and everything. And so when I was
Mhm.
reading it, it was great because there was another student that was, going through the pictures and everything. At the end of it, we had a discussion about was it good or bad to have this different language in there and why. And they saw themselves reflected in that children's book. That's the goal, is to have our kids, and that's one of the goals, is to have not only a window into a different world that they don't know about, but
Mhm.
also see the mirror of what they're going through. During the hearing that we had just a few days ago,
Mhm.
is a student over at Reno High School, and she helped me present it because that's actually where it's coming from, or from students. She talked about being seventh grade before she really saw somebody that looked like her in her history classes or in her English books. That's a problem, and that's what we need to adjust. Now, again, what I said earlier about the textbook adoption, it's been the last two textbooks. That makes sense actually with the time frame, with her having this experience, because the last textbook adoption, she would have been about eighth grade. So should have been
Mhm.
about this. She had that. For that, I don't know why she didn't see that experience. Honestly, I don't, because it should have been about fourth or fifth grade before that, or third grade. So that's one that I don't know why. But that's kind of what we're trying to do, is to have the literature, the social studies books, the health and science books be a reflection of our kids, a mirror, but also a window into a different world. So it's perfect that actually we're talking in front of a mirror behind you and the window behind you, but that's kind of a philosophy that's actually often taught in education classes. And it was something that I remember learning myself when I was going through the College of Ed up at the University of Nevada. So it's that philosophy. So it does go into this
So it's
community's.
about culture. Excuse me to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. No, as you were saying,
So it's about culture, right? It's about learning from each other's experience. It's a reflection of who they are.
a little bit.
Okay.
It's about trying to make sure that we're open to having these discussions and learning from each other.
Okay.
Um, that has a lot more to do with the pedagogical fashion that the educators, as well as the families, as well as the school districts, make the decision to follow. But
Mhm.
this way, it's something that the textbooks, the instructional materials that are being adopted, it's present. So this way, it can be utilized in the best fashion that we can. Does that
Utilizing
clarify?
the bit. Okay, I have to see some examples, and you can send me that on email. That would definitely be great.
Oh, sure.
So
Actually, you can
so what do
even,
you
there's a
what
ton of different children's books out there.
what
Like Sophia Valdez, which is the book I just read. I mean, something like this. It allows the kids to see it, that sort of idea.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I have to take a look at it. What do you say to people that this is indoctrination, this is bias, that this is just simply what some people may think it's anti European descent propaganda, and it's just a way of saying that certain people are evil and they're oppressors and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I understand that, yes, we had slavery and we took land from certain types of people, but that is just how civilizations have been done for thousands of years. If you look at, for an example, my parents' home country, this was a country that benefited from the African slave trade. The slave trade came from the Arab population, and they distributed in Iran, Pakistan, China. So I want to make sure that we don't have this like one-sided mindset to think that, okay, well, it's only some people that are just oppressors. They push you down, and these people have to be shamed and they have to be, you know, outnumbered, and we have to just, you know, continue to welcome people like crazy, like all over the world, no matter how many, no matter what the effects are. So, what do you say about that?
Well, first, that's not the goal of this at all. It's not just, I personally do believe that celebrating another culture does not mean that celebration of one culture does not mean another culture is not also should be. So that's not, no, this idea of that. It's something that Cesar Chavez said initially, that, you know, celebrating your own culture does not mean that another culture has to be put down. So that's nowhere near the goal. Same time, we do have to recognize the mistakes of the past. And I do say mistakes, and I say that on purpose, because there are people that have literally looked at me as a white woman and would have said, nope, there's no way that you could ever. I mean, my grandmother's a prime example. My grandmother, a white woman, was told, Super, you're really good with botany. That's great, but you can never become an actual lab botanist because, you know. And so it's those sort of discussions that we need to continue to tap to make sure, not to make sure, to discuss what happens from those choices that we've had before in the past. Although I do recognize what you're saying. I'm sorry, where's your family from originally?
Iran.
Iran. So the Iran experience. I mean,
Persian,
there's oh my goodness, the Persian artifact world, because I know a little bit about that artistic, the loss of that is because of individuals trying to erase a different culture. That's not okay. We can't do that. We have to recognize, in my opinion, and that's one reason why this is also being brought forward. We have to recognize this contribution from different cultural items. Think about what happened with all of those artifacts that were lost. What was it, about 8 years ago, where the bombing took place of the museum? I want to say it was 8. It might have been 10 years ago now. You know the museum that I'm speaking of. That all of those items, all of this historical artifacts have now been lost because of another group trying to say, we disagree with you. We don't want anything to do with this. We can't treat each other that way. We can have differences of opinion, exactly as you just brought up right at the beginning. We're going to have a different opinion. That's okay. And as a matter of fact, sometimes that's what we need. We need people disagree with each other. So
yeah, but you see, we have some people. Sorry to interrupt, but we have some people in the legislature that, you know, don't want to talk about different opinions. They walk away. They just think that you're just some extremist or people that they should avoid. And unfortunately, you know, if we don't get the truth out, what's going to happen is that the problems don't get solved, and then it gets worse and worse until, you know, it's probably too late to solve them. But, you know, I think a lot of people are just kind of like not happy, and they're concerned about cancel culture. I mean, I can argue that there's supremacy in the Las Vegas Strip because so many hotel casinos are European themed, and, you know, we might argue there's a bias because there's no Persian themed casino. And, you know, we may argue that the architectural styles of the area of the housing, you know, is biased, and there is no Persian themed homes, even though it would work very well in Las Vegas because you have a similar climate and you keep the buildings cool. But I guess, you know, that, I mean, where does this all end? You know, just, you know, statues are being removed. It's just one thing after another. And again,
well, I hear what you're saying, and unfortunately I just got interrupted. I do have my next meeting in a minute, but I do think there have been cultures that have also been canceled that would not have been, and that does not mean that that we should be okay with that either. I mean,
yeah,
we cannot continue to say and have a national figure state that there was no culture in America before the Mayflower came. That's a problem. And so I disagree. At the same time, I recognize that there are discussions that need to be taking place. You know, with the casinos and everything, I agree that it needs to have some more excitement, some more international flavor, international recognition. At the same time, Vegas is also, as is Reno, as is Sparks. And I'm so sorry. I am going to have to leave, but I really did enjoy our conversation.
Thank you.
You know, always welcome to contact me.
Yeah,
Thank you
well,
so
give me a time machine. I want to undo my testimony because, unfortunately, I think I've been misunderstood. But anyway, yeah, I really appreciate our time, and hopefully
Thank you.
we can come together. And again, I respect every culture, including Europeans, because again, this country was established by you guys.
Well, Native Americans, but some other things that happen too. I agree. So no, this
Yes.
is trying to find the way for us to recognize more.
But as long
So
as
thank
we
you
each
so
other
much.
benefit, so.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have fun. See you.
Bye.